Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space and some more Halloween cards because I just needed to make these cards. I have had these products sitting here for a while. Some of it was sent to me, some of it I ordered because I just had to have all of them. Specifically, these are the Spellbinders, Dancin Grim, Dancin Boy, Day of the Dead, and Dancin Girl, Day of the Dead. And I think it was I can't remember if it was last year or the previous year's Halloween series, and I'll have to hopefully find it and link it at the end of this video. But I did a series of Halloween cards, like in one video, and I did a bunch of cards using some of their other dancing. There was the Dancin Mummy and Dancin Ghost, and just so cute. So cute, so fun. Definitely my style of interactive card because it's really, really simple. Like, you basically just need to assemble the wafer dice and then pop it onto a little bit of foam adhesive, which I'll show in the video, and they move. They dance. I love it. It's so fun. So anyway, use those. I also pulled out my BetterPress because I love this spiderweb background press plate. I did a video on the BetterPress. I did a couple videos. I did one of my first lives. I unboxed the BetterPress live and used it for the first time. And then I made some Halloween cards earlier in this series using these plates along with some of the other ones. So that'll be in the Halloween series that's linked at the end of this video as well. So yeah, I did some letter pressing, die cutting, splattering, ink blending, and they move. All sorts of things. Loads of fun. I really enjoyed making them. I hope you guys enjoy watching. And yeah, if you keep watching, I will show you guys how I made all of these cards. Alrighty, so the first thing I did was pulled out the BetterPress. And like I said in the intro, I've already got a video, that live stream I did. I will link to that at the end of this one. That kind of goes over it. And then there's other videos out there, explaining all the things. Because I'm also not using it with like the recommended anything because I like to do, whatever. And this first one, I have it's the platen. The plastic part. I forget the names already. One's the chase, one's the platen. I forget which is which. But anyway, this clear plastic piece, it's upside down. Does it really matter? Not really. But if you're trying to center things up, it does. And I figured that out after this first one. Anyway, I'm also not using the Spellbinders like paper that's meant, like the nice cotton paper that's meant for the BetterPress. That stuff's amazing. I'm not knocking it. I love that. And the impression you get with that stuff is amazing. However, these first two panels are going to go on the insides of my cards. So I don't want to use the good cotton watercolor paper for this. I am just using thin cardstock. This is closest to be, it would be like Neenah 80 pound, just thin white cardstock. And then I also used Simon's FLANNEL Pawsitively saturated ink. It worked perfectly. Does that mean it's always going to work? No, but you can experiment with different inks. I've been just slowly, little bit by bit, as I, use this little system more, just experimenting. Because you guys know I need to have something on the inside of my cards. And that was like throwing me off a bit with the BetterPress. Because I was like, oh, great, what am I going to do on the inside? Because, if I've got this like deep impression, watercolor paper, etc., and then I'm kind of stuck sometimes. But I was like, well, what if I just do it on cardstock? And then what if I use lighter colored inks? And yeah, that works. So with this spiderweb background, I was just taping and like barely touching the corner because I wasn't sure at first if I was going to cut these panels down. So that right now they're A2 sized. And I just use my little Spellbinders tape and just stick it onto the clear plate. And then yeah, inking up the spiderweb backgrounds BetterPress plate with the FLANNEL Pawsitively saturated ink, and I just lightly tap it because those ink pads are foam that really has a give to it, so just gentle tapping, and it was perfect, literally. And while I'm using very thin cardstock, so obviously, again, you're not going to get that deep impression. One, I don't want that deep impression because this is going on the inside of the card. But in real life, and because it's impossible to show on camera, but in real life, you can still feel it, which is fun because I was filling out cards the other day as I was sending them. There was a couple of them that I had used, you know, the BetterPress plates again on the inside. And as I was writing, you could feel the little dips from the impression. And I don't know why, you guys, but I love it. I was like, this is so cool. So anyhow, I did that first on purpose because those are that's a very pale ink, just quick and easy. And then I quickly wiped the plate off because it was just positively saturated ink. We're good to go. So now these panels are going to go on the front of my cards. So now I'm using Simon's smooth white 120 pound cardstock. Again, I'm not going to get like that deep impression you get when you use the good stuff, but this works really good too. And I wanted to do just ink blending, and I like to experiment, you know, why not? So I've got that cardstock taped into place. And this time I use the Spellbinders BetterPress ink, the black BetterPress ink, because it is, it's a form of archival ink. Ranger has formulated this for Spellbinders for the BetterPress. It's like basically a slightly thicker version of archival ink. And I use that because also I want to do ink blending on top of these panels. And this ink is like permanent. It's not going anywhere. And same thing, I got just a perfect impression. Now, depending on your machine, different factors, if you're not using, you know, the Spellbinders cotton paper that's meant for the BetterPress, you might need to add a shim or two, you know, because once you start fiddling with things and doing, you know, what is not part of the system, to get better results, you might need to use shims, etc. I didn't need to do that. I was using everything just as is, and it impressed right onto this cardstock. But I have seen other makers' videos and stuff where they would have to add a shim or two to just when they're going outside the rules, let's just say. But this worked, and so I impressed 2 panels with that spiderweb background using the BetterPress black ink. And after I did that, and now that I know that, I was like, okay, the positively saturated inks are working great. So I'm going to do this again onto the thinner white cardstock, this time using the Pumpkins and Ghosts background, another one that I just love. And I wasn't sure if this one would work because there's, you know, more solid areas with and then using it with that positively saturated flannel ink. But same thing, it pressed it right into this thin cardstock. It was perfection. I love it. And again, in real life, you can feel it. You can feel that it's pressed in. And I love it. I will have more videos and stuff coming using the BetterPress, because have I bought more, you know, plates and designs for it? Of course I have. So anyway, I did that twice again for the insides of the cards. Now I've switched to, again, Simon's 120 pound smooth white cardstock, and I wiped off the plate, and then this time I was getting a little fancy, and I'm going to ink these up with colors, and I'm specifically going to link these up, or ink, need to use my words properly. Ink these up. This first one I used azalea and strawberry BetterPress inks. And with the BetterPress inks, it's recommended you basically kind of tap and twist. The ink pads themselves, they are firm felt pads with like the linen cover. So to get good coverage, you just tap and twist. And so that's what I did. And I started with azalea, the lighter color, went to strawberry, and where the colors kind of met, I just did more tapping, less twisting. And I didn't get a perfect impression the first time, but because everything was still in place, and I was like, well, let's just see if I can just re-ink the top portion, because that's what was not perfect. So I did. I re-inked it with that azalea, ran it through a second time, and it worked. So sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, you know, because sometimes things shift just a little bit, but it worked. So I was like, love it. Then the other thing that is recommended, and I do recommend, is the Ranger Archival Cleaner. I don't use the little dabber on the bottle directly onto my plates because that just starts getting it gunked up, after a while. So I just squeeze a bit onto a cloth and then use that to remove the BetterPress ink because, again, it is a form of archival ink. It's one of the hardest inks to clean off of things. And if you're just sticking with black, not a big deal. But I'm switching, using multiple colors, switching between colors on the same plate. So I cleaned it off, and then this time I'm using hydrangea and leaf ink. And these are from the little set, the flower garden set. And like everything, I'll have links below the video to all the things I used. So did that one, and same thing. I got, the multicolor background, and I was just like, this is fun. I don't know. There's something about letterpress. I love it. It's so fun. So anywho, after I did all my letterpressing, I'm going to make my first 2 cards. So I'm using these spiderweb backgrounds that I had impressed onto the Simon Smooth White cardstock with the black BetterPress ink. I trim these panels down to like 4 inches by 5 1/4, just so they're slightly smaller than an A2 card front. And then I ink blended 2 different colors of Concord and 9th inks over these panels, keeping the color more concentrated towards the edges. And then like as I was using the ink up with my brush, allowing it to be kind of lighter, that sort of halo effect in the center. And the inks I used were grape soda first. So I used grape soda ink, and I've super sped this up in editing. I don't blend this quickly. It still didn't take that long, but this video's a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. So I just super sped this up. So I'm like just super speedy. I only wish I could do this in real life. Like, when you're cleaning bathrooms, if I could like just speed that up 800 times faster, life would be great. Anyway, started with grape soda, and then I added eggplant because, gorgeous color. So I did all that blending to get that purple gorgeousness. And then for my splatter, because of course it needs splatter, I pulled out some Fortune Teller mica stain, shook it up really, really well because the mica settles to the bottom. So I had shaken it up really well. And then I just pulled the nozzle right out of the bottle and just used that to splatter all over this background, or both of these backgrounds. And then I just got to let that dry. And then I'm going to assemble my first little Dancin character. And this one, of course, is the Dancin Grim etched wafer dies. Oh, he's cute. They're just, I don't know what it is about them, honestly. They're adorable. I love them. So I die cut the pieces for his robe from Simon's, I think it's Eggplant is what it's called. Yes, Eggplant glitter cardstock. You technically don't need to back this cardstock. It's a decent weight, this glitter cardstock, but I wanted to just give it a little bit extra like sturdiness. So I also die cut those same pieces from just scraps of black cardstock and then adhered them together with my craft tacky glue. And then for the head portion, you've got basically the robe. Then there's the funny little pointy oval shape that is basically kind of like the inside of the hood. And then you've got his little skull. And as you start to assemble it, it's just like, seriously, it's just freaking cute. I love it. So after I got those assembled, I'm going to adhere his little hands. So the one just kind of tucks behind. I'm just following the packaging. There was no need for me to like try and think outside the box. I'm lucky when those sorts of ideas occur to me. But more often than not, I just follow the packaging. And like I always say, I love when brands like do the work for me. Like when they label things for me, or, stuff is just laid out, or the packaging like this where it's all done in color and assembled. I was like, thank you. I very much appreciate this. So there's a little piece that is basically what's the inside of his sleeve. I started to adhere his little hand to it and then realized, nope, I gotta pull those apart because that's gonna hold his little scythe. So I die cut the cutting portion of that from scraps of some matte silver cardstock, and then the handle from just a scrap of dark brown cardstock. Assembled them just like so, and then I'll adhere this little piece that again is basically like kind of the inside portion of his little robe, and then just give myself a little visual, add a little bit of glue so then I can adhere the side into place. And then I can stick his little hand into place and he's done. Like this one's the most simple to assemble. But again, and I say this a lot, any real like wafer die set that has like multiple pieces, it's always one of those things where once you've assembled it once, generally it always just makes sense. Like the first one, that's what I showed, filming. I was like, okay, it took me a minute, and I was like, okay. And then the second one, I didn't even have to think. It just came together like so easily. So after I had assembled my little dudes for the sentiments, I was originally going to stamp them, on separate cardstock, adhered, etc. And then I was like, oh, I wonder if I can just stamp it right onto these backgrounds. So I tested it first. I used my anti-static powder tool because it had sat long enough and dried to make sure that the embossing powder wouldn't stick. So I used my anti-static powder tool, and before stamping, you saw me, I poured the embossing powder along the bottom to make sure it wasn't going to cling to everything. It was good to go. So I applied the anti-static powder tool again, and then I stamped one of the sentiments from the Dancin Halloween Sentiments stamp set. So I stamped that with clear embossing ink and then covered it with that white embossing powder, melted it with my heat tool, and it says, "No bones about it, you're the best." I was like, of course, love it. So after I'd heat embossed those, I wiped off that excess anti-static powder with my cloth, and then I took another sentiment from that same Dancin Halloween Sentiment set, and I stamped it onto those panels I did at the very beginning with just the FLANNEL Pawsitively saturated ink. And I trimmed those down as well. And then I just stamped the little Happy Halloween sentiment onto these panels with VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink. So now all I have to do is assemble these cards. So I'm going to adhere these panels into my card bases. And my card bases are just top folding A2 white note cards. So 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. So I'll adhere the panels with the very pale gray spiderwebs and the sentiment. And then I'm going to adhere my ink blended and splattered and heat embossed panels to the card fronts. Once those are adhered into place, to adhere the little Dancin Grim, you need foam squares or foam circles. Foam circles are going to give you more movement, but if you don't have circles, squares can work too. Or if you want to get a little finicky, you could kind of trim down the squares a little bit, like kind of take the corners off a bit to make it a little bit more round. But I did have foam circles for once. This is why I like, you just never throw anything out with the, in your craft stash. So I used a foam circle, and you just adhere it, and then the little Dancin portion just kind of hangs off of that. You don't add any other adhesive to that. It just is. So the head portion of these, you have to make sure when you add adhesive to that, same thing, you don't want to get in the way of the little body that moves. So I just took it right off the card front, and I'm just holding it upside down. It's kind of hard to see on camera because like the back of everything is black, but I can see where the mechanism, aka the Dancin portion, is, so that I can place foam squares around this little head portion, and they're not going to get in the way, they're not going to stick to that, etc. And then once I've ensured that it's still going to move around, nothing's going to get stuck into place, I can then peel off the backing and then pop this little dude into place. And I'll actually show I do it a slightly different on the last 2 cards, but this worked. And then he dances, and then I sat and played with it for I don't even know how long. And I was like showing it to Chris. I'm like, look at how cute this is. And he's like, they're glittery. I'm like, I know. Anyway, after I did that, this is also why I keep all my scraps. I've mentioned this many times. I keep all my cardstock scraps, even little tiny ones, because I use them. I use them up because I like doing little, finicky, fiddly die cuts like this. So this one is the Dancin Day of the Dead boy die set. A little more involved, but again, not near as difficult as one would think. And again, for the most part, I basically just kind of followed the packaging, even with the color details, because I just wasn't in the mood to think outside the box, really. But yeah, you could do whatever colors you want. That's the fun of it, So I just assembled it again, just kind of following the packaging. Everything just kind of makes sense, really. And I used with these ones, because there's, some smaller little die cuts and whatnot. I'm using my Craft Tacky glue that I have in a Gina K Precision bottle. So I can add, little tiny bits here and there. and assembled. With him, you basically assemble the head and the body together. It's just his little leg portion that dances. So a couple areas like behind the skull, and then these little open areas on his sleeves. I just adhered tiny little scraps of cardstock just to cover them, because like these little openings on the sleeves, that's basically kind of the insides of the sleeves. So I was like, oh, little scraps of black cardstock, stuck those into place, and I'm good to go. You just got to make sure not to cover up it pierces the detail around it would be his right arm. It's the left side of this, because that's where you tuck the little guitar under, which I'll show in a second. So I got those adhered, and then assembled his little guitar. And then, yeah, that kind of pops up a bit, and then you can tuck it in there. And then I was off camera, but I just squeezed a little bit of glue behind the guitar and glued it into place. So once that's in place, I can then adhere, same thing, his little hands. So he's playing his little guitar, and I love him. He's just the cutest little thing. So he's basically assembled. There's just these two little pieces for his shoes. So you adhere those, and then he was done. So I got him assembled, and then same thing. I die cut all of the pieces to do the Dancin Day of the Dead girl die set, and same thing. All similar sort of colors. All the cardstocks I was using were either Simon Says Stamp or Concord 9th. Yeah, because again, I was just pulling from my little container that has tons of scraps in it. So I die cut all of the little pieces, had them all laid out, and then just started assembling. This one, same thing. I stuck a little scrap behind that detail part right there for her little skull, because like sugar skulls. And then I had die cut a tiny little scrap for that little opening where her nose is. And then like assembling her hair. This was really fun too, because I was like, oh, you can add, and there's the little flowers as accessories, and I love it. So this one, her head is separate. It's the entire body that moves. So you assemble everything and you keep them separate. And it's obvious as you like start putting everything together. So there's the little flowers. I just die cut the centers, again, from just a little scrap of cardstock, but you could totally put little jewels or little pearls, anything like that. And then the body portion, there's the movement piece, which is always this round, like open circle. So it's obvious what it is. And then you just start assembling her little dress. And then as I was doing this, I was like, oh, this one would be fun to die cut from like glitter cardstocks. And yeah, there was a fruit fly buzzing around as I was filming. I'm actually kind of glad it's been snowing and then we're getting freezing temperatures, because that's the end of fruit fly season, because they're driving me nuts when I'm working out here in the garage. And yeah, people have been commenting. The flowers you see in the background, it was my birthday last week. So the flower deliveries, I keep them out here with me, and those have also been attracting the fruit flies. But the flowers are pretty, and I'm in here, working all the time. So I want to keep them where I can see them. So anywho, he's been buzzing around, and he was really annoying when I was filming this portion. But anywho, I assembled everything. Like I said, or like I was saying, her dress, you could totally like glitter cardstock. You could do pattern paper, just different color combos. Like the sky's the limit. You could have so much fun with it. Like I was just like, oh, you could give her so many different like types of outfits. It'd be so fun. But I just, again, for the most part, followed the packaging with like a couple little pieces here and there. I switched up the colors, but other than that, I kind of kept it the same. And then after I got that assembled, then I adhered the little flowers to her hair. There's little flowers, and then there's the little leaves, and I love it. I just love it. I just tucked them in. Once I got everything into place for both of these characters, then it's going to be, then I'm going to go back to the backgrounds. Because once my characters are assembled, then I can start like actually finishing off the cards. So I got the little leaves adhered to the flowers in her hair. Once I was done with that, I took those backgrounds that I had used the pumpkins and ghosts background BetterPress plate on. And same thing, I trimmed these down to slightly smaller. It was like, again, I think 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then with these, I also did ink blending, but I used more than one color of ink, just 'cause. And because I had used the BetterPress ink, which is basically archival ink. Archival ink, in a sense, is kind of resists. I don't want to say it fully just resists things you put on top of it, but in some ways it sort of does. So I was able to do this ink blending, and it doesn't fully change the color of the BetterPress ink. So on that panel that I'd used the Hydrangea and Leaf BetterPress inks, I blended Concord and Ninth, Sorbet and Buttercup inks over. Just bringing in like those colors. Like that was my kind of goal, is to bring in the colors of the cardstocks that I used to create those characters. So then on this panel that I had used the Azalea and Strawberry BetterPress ink, I blended Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated inks in Limelicious and Surf. So not your typical, Halloween colors, but at the same time, fun and cheerful and just bright, which also goes really well with Day of the Dead because it is very, very colorful. I love it. So blended those on, and now you can see like this is how they're basically going to look. So I'm going to do the same thing, except this time I'm just kind of assemble the characters upside down just like this, rather than attach the dancing part directly to the card front like I did with the first two cards. So either or works. I just found with these, I was like, oh, if I do this, then I can see where everything's going and I don't have to guesstimate so much where I can place my little foam squares. And yeah, I kind of would test it, hold it with the little foam circle there to see where the legs were moving, to see where I could place the other foam squares. And once I was happy with where everything was, then I can just peel off the backing. And then I just kind of hold everything in place as I stick it to the card front. So just like so. And then he'll dance. And he's adorable. And I love it. Just love it. And then I'm going to do the same thing with her. And this one, again, the whole body moves. So the only adhesive is the foam dot that holds the body mechanism. And then a few little foam squares on the back of the head portion. And that's it. So you could also stick maybe some little, either some extra little pieces of cardstock on the back of these, like on the back of the Dancin portion. Or you could also stick maybe a thinner foam square and just not take the backing off of it just to make it move a little bit more. But so far I just haven't felt the need to do that. Like it just works. So, and like I said, this is my type of interactive card because it's pretty simple. So I did all of that. And then the panels that I did with the pumpkins and ghosts background and with the flannel Positively Saturated ink, I stamped and I apologize if I butcher this pronunciation, the Feliz Dia de los Muertos sentiment, which just means Happy Day of the Dead. And I stamped that sentiment with the VersaFine Clair Nocturne ink onto those panels, adhered them to the insides of my card bases, which are again top folding A2 white note cards. So I got those adhered, and then I adhered the card fronts, and you could technically stop here, but then I was like, oh no, I forgot to add splatter to these ones, and everything's already adhered. So I was like, well, I'll just add some bling. Because you got to have something. So I just used some Pink Fresh Studios Ruby glitter drops. These also come in handy, like to add bling with these types, because Spellbinders has a ton of these Dancin. They did a whole Christmas series of them this year, and I did the other Halloween ones. There's all sorts of ones. But any of these types of Dancin die sets, you can use your bling to kind of restrict some of the movement depending on how you've adhered things, if that makes sense, so that they're not swinging like all over the place. But I just added the bling because, it was pretty. It needed something. And then it got me thinking, I was like, well, it needs more glitter. So I pulled out my Tonic Aqua Shimmer pen and just painted different parts of these little characters just to give it extra shimmer. You could always skip this step, or like I said earlier, you could use scraps of glitter cardstock to die cut. That would have looked adorable as well. Again, if I had enough hours in the day, I totally would, make 20 of these, like all different colors, all different types of cardstock, the specialty cardstocks, everything, because they're fun. They're so fun. So I painted on the glitter onto these, and then, like I always do, I will show with my flashlight all of the shimmer and glittery bits. And yeah, that was 4 BetterPressed action Halloween cards using these little Dancin die sets from Spellbinders. So these two, he's got his purple glittery robes, which I just love. And then I tried to show the shimmer of the mica spray splatter. Kind of hard to see again on camera because it's just his glittery robes take center stage, which was kind of the whole point. I'm fine with it. So he's just dancing, and I love it. Absolutely love it. And again, in real life, you can feel it. Even on the thinner cardstock, you can feel the impression from the BetterPress plates, and I love it. So then these guys have the glitter and shimmer on their die cuts, and they're dancing around. And I didn't put any sentiments on the fronts of these. I thought just with the backgrounds and everything going on, they just didn't need it. So we've got the little shimmery bits, and then, the repeat of that pumpkins and ghosts background on the inside with the lighter ink, and then the sentiment, and that's it. So, like I mentioned in the intro, I will link to that BetterPress live stream that I did for anyone who is interested. I will also find the link for the other Dancin Halloween cards that I'd done. I think it might have been 2 years ago now. I just can't remember, but I will find that. I will link to that at the end screen as well. And then, of course, I'll have a link to my 2023 Halloween playlist, which has quite a few videos in it. Even though this is only number, I think, 24 or something like that, I have also done many live streams in the last couple months with Halloween themes. So those are in the playlist as well. And then, like I always do, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. There'll be picture links in the blog post along with all the pictures. A lot easier to navigate, so that'll be linked directly below along with the supply list with links to everything I used. So you can check that out below if you are interested. Thank you all so very much for watching, commenting, thumbs upping, subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.